The September air in Beaver Creek was sharp and cold, mountain wind rattling through the trees, carrying the faint scent of pine and rain. A young woman stumbled barefoot along the deserted road, her thin t-shirt clinging to her skin in the night breeze. Each breath came ragged, her chest burning, her legs trembling with exhaustion. Her knees were scraped, her heart hammering so hard it drowned out the night. She braced both hands against her temples, the thoughts slamming in. What am I doing here? How did I get here? Suddenly, headlights carved the dark. She froze. Adrian Beckett caught the motion a heartbeat before the bend. He stomped the brakes. The sedan skated and caught, just a glancing brush, more felt than heard, then came to rest. Sideways while the engine ticked, and the crickets kept singing. He was out before sense could argue. 38. A man who made markets pivot with a call and hadn't run toward anything in 5 years, running now. She lay on her side at the shoulder, a slim line of blood at her hairline, dirt on her ankles, breath shallow but steady. He crouched, hands hovering as if touch might break her. Long pale gold hair tangled with pine straw, a clean whisper of coconut, like she'd showered hours ago and the night had gone wrong after. "Hey," he said, gentle, steady. "You're okay." Her lashes trembled. A small sound, then fingers closing around his wrist with startling strength. She didn't open her eyes. She held on. "Don't take me home," she whispered. "Please, don't leave me." The words hit a sealed place in him. He scanned fast. The cut, the pupils, the clean line of the collarbone, and then the bruises, small oval shadows no bumper would ever leave, the kind made by hands. He slid an arm under her shoulders and behind her knees, lifted, light as if fear burned hotter than weight. A slim bar pendant flashed at her throat. The engraving caught his headlight as he turned. Sarah. He laid her across the back seat, tucked his jacket under her head, and took the short climb to the ridge house above Vale. Glass and stone in the dark pines, stars bright enough to feel like a crowd. He called as he drove. "I've got a young woman with a head cut. Likely a concussion," he told Dr. Jenkins. "Can you come to the house?" "On my way," Jenkins said. Inside, he laid her on the white quilt in the guest room, a calm space of winter throws and clean lines where, down the hall, a piano kept the kind of silence that comes from not being touched for years. He poured water. When she reached, her hand trembled and her mouth, soft, unsure, took a careful sip. Green eyes opened, wide and searching, trying to place him and failing. He kept his voice low. "Is your name Sarah?" She flinched, swallowed. I don't remember," she said, the words thinning at the edges. "I'm trying, but it isn't there." He nodded once, offering steadiness instead of pressure. "You're safe now." The bell shaved the quiet. Jenkins arrived with the mountain cold and a leather bag that had seen worse nights, checked her with penlight and reflex hammer, asked simple questions that wouldn't stay put in her head. "Mild concussion," he said at last. "Shock, likely dissociative amnesia. Keep it dark and quiet, push fluids. If she isn't clearer in 48 hours, take her in." His gaze paused on the bruises, small and deliberate. "Those aren't from a car." "I know," Adrian said, jaw tight. After the door closed, the house seemed to listen. He left water and tablets on the nightstand and stayed in the doorway with his hands open where she could see them. She watched him the way a spooked bird measures a hand, wary, deciding. "May I sit?" he asked. She nodded, wary but willing, her eyes tracking his open hands and the careful distance he kept as if measuring the risk before granting it. He took the armchair angled toward the window, where moonlight laid a pale square. On the floorboards, close enough to be there, far enough not to threaten. Wind combed the pines outside. Inside, their breathing found a slower rhythm. She drifted, then jolted, breath sawn short, eyes flaring as panic climbed. He didn't move closer without asking. "May I help?" Her breath hitched, and she nodded, an urgent yes that invited him nearer, while still watching for any reason to pull away. He eased to the mattress edge, slow and obvious, offered his forearm, and she latched on. Neat pale nails, the warm inside of her wrist, a river of pulse under skin. He talked her down with his breath and voice. In, out. "You're here. You're safe." until the tremor ran its course through his sleeve. Color returned to her face, the green of her eyes steadied. Her mouth looked like it could remember how to laugh when life allowed it. Her hair slipped in soft waves across the quilt, catching light like water. He stood to go, and she flinched at the moving shadow. "I'll be right here," he said, nodding to the long sofa across from the bed. "Door open. Say my name if you need me." "What is it?" she asked, small. "Adrian." She tested it softly. "Adrian." He turned off the lamp, let the moon hold the room together, and stretched on the sofa, hands folded, a sentry who hadn't guarded anyone in half a decade, watching the window until the stars blurred. Sometime after midnight, the sheets whispered and her voice threaded the dark. "Adrian?" He pushed up on one elbow on the sofa, already reaching her with his voice. "I'm here," he said, low and steady. There was a small, breakable silence, and then the plea that had already changed the night. "Please, don't leave me." She woke to a room that didn't know her name. Sunlight pooled on the white quilt. The air smelled like coffee and something warm and sweet. Footsteps moved in the kitchen. She sat up slow, head ached dull but manageable, and noticed the thin chain at her throat. A small bar pendant. Sarah. The letters were sure of themselves in a way she wasn't. In the doorway she paused, one hand on the frame. Adrian stood at the stove, tall, broad-shouldered, sleeves pushed to his forearms as he flipped pancakes. Dark brown hair still damp from a quick shower. Blue eyes when he turned, sharp and steady. There was power in the way he filled a room. There was kindness in the way he kept his distance. "Morning," he said. "How's the head?" "Thick." She touched the cut at her hairline. "And empty." He nodded toward the stool. "Sit. Eat." She slid onto the stool in the oversized sweats he'd left folded on the chair, toes curling against the bar. A folded stack of clean clothes waited nearby. Soft t-shirt, leggings, fresh socks. Quiet proof that someone had thought ahead for her. He set a plate in front of her. Steam rose from pancakes the color of late September. Butter softened. Maple bled into the edges. Her stomach answered before she did. "Thank you," she said, surprised by how much the words mattered. He poured coffee. "I don't have to be in the city today," he said, "so we can take this slow. A beat. And decide what comes next." He'd learned the cost of rushing choices, the kind of cost you never stopped paying. She wrapped her hands around the warm mug, but a pang of guilt tugged at her chest. Was she already taking too much? What if he regretted letting her stay? Her thumb worried the pendant again. "It says Sarah." Her voice thinned, a touch of panic she tried to swallow. "Am I Sarah?" His gaze flicked to the necklace. He'd seen it last night when everything had been noise and fear. "It's a place to start," he said gently. "Only if you want it." She closed her eyes, let the coffee warm her hands. "I don't remember," she said. "Anything that matters, just being afraid." "We can go to the police," he said. "Today or wait. Your call." She stared at the plate. The fork felt heavier than it should. "Can we wait? Just a little, please." He considered that, then nodded once. "All right." The next part cost him something. She heard it in the rough edge of his voice. "But you can't stay here indefinitely. Tomorrow we talk to the police and a women's shelter I know in town. We'll find you a place." Her throat tightened. She nodded. "Okay." The warmth of the food only made the knot in her stomach tighter. Safety felt like something borrowed, not hers to keep. She glanced at him, fork idle in her hand. "Why me?" The words slipped out, thin but urgent. "How did I end up here?" Adrian set his cup down, the faintest pause in his movements. "You ran into the road," he said. "I couldn't keep driving." Her breath hitched. "So you almost killed me." His jaw flexed, a shadow in his blue eyes. "I hit the brakes in time to keep it from being worse, but yes. That's how we met." She pressed her fingers to the pendant again, the name that might not be hers. "Then why bring me here? You could have left me at a hospital, called the police." Adrian's gaze held hers, steady, unreadable. "Because when you opened your eyes, the first thing you said was, 'Don't take me home.' And I believed you." Her throat tightened. For the first time she realized the stranger across from her wasn't just a man who'd found her. He was someone who'd made a choice. They ate the rest in silence, every scrape of silverware louder than the words they weren't saying. After, he handed her the folded clothes with a neutral ease that made her feel more human. "Bathrooms down the hall," he said. "Fresh towels in the cabinet." When the cup was empty, she drifted into the living room, drawn to the wide glass doors that opened to the deck. Morning air pressed bright and cold against the panes. Outside, Adrian was at the woodpile. He moved with a steady rhythm, shirt clinging to his back, the axe lifting, falling, splitting clean. Every motion was precise, purposeful, muscle flexing and easing, with a discipline that looked unstudied but hard-earned. Steam curled faintly off his skin in the cold, his jaw set, profile sharp against the light. She caught herself staring at the strength, at the control. Something alive sparked under her ribs. He glanced up suddenly, catching her through the glass. Their eyes held a beat too long, awareness sliding electric between them, before he set another log neatly on the stack. A man who knew where to put heat and where to save it. Her pulse unsteady, she pulled back from the window and found the folded clothes waiting on the chair. She carried them down the hall to the bathroom. She showered fast, careful of the bandage at her hairline, and found her reflection both familiar and strange. Green eyes she recognized, a mouth that looked like it should be laughing, not bracing. The question rose inside her, unbidden and sharp. "Who are you? Are you Sarah, or are you someone else?" Adrian swung around the corner, a crate of split wood braced to his hip, resin scent still on his hands, too fast, too focused on the fire to see her until it was too late. Steam rolled into the hall as Sarah stepped out, skin damp from the shower, a towel knotted high and gold hair clinging wet to her shoulders. He slammed into her in the narrow space, the crate striking the doorframe with a thud, his shoulder brushing bare skin, heat against heat, sudden, electric. Her palm hit the wall to steady herself. The towel slipped in a hush to the floor. Her cheeks burned as she pressed her arms across her chest, a small startled "oh" escaping before she could bite it back. "I've got it," Adrian said, already turning his face up to the ceiling. He bent, lifted the towel and held it out at arm's length, restraint etched into every line of his shoulders. She tied it high, breath quick, pulse hammering in her throat. Inside, the question burned. Why does my body react when my mind remembers nothing? "May I check your shoulder?" Adrian asked softly. "Only if you want me to." His hand hovered, not touching yet, eyes steady but uncertain, as if asking permission twice without words. "You've been through enough. I won't add to that. Not unless you ask me to." Her throat worked. She cleared a circle on the fogged mirror and turned. The bruises were stark in the gentle light, dark ovals at the cap of her shoulder, the line of her back. Adrian went still. These weren't from a fall. They were shaped like fingers. Someone had held her with purpose and without mercy. "I'll use an arnica salve," he said evenly. "Cool at first. If you want me to stop, I stop." She braced her hands on the dresser, watching her reflection like it might hold her together. His knuckles skimmed her skin, delicate, asking permission with every pass. Her breath caught. He slowed, careful, steady. The salve cooled, but beneath it the bruises burned. "These aren't from the car," he said quietly. "They're from hands." Her lashes lowered. "My mind is blank," she whispered, "but my body isn't." For a heartbeat, her green eyes locked with his. The air thickened, too close, too charged. Adrian's breath caught. Then he stepped back, subtle retreat, distance as safety. He capped the jar, straightened the towel rail like it mattered. "Clean clothes are on the chair," he said, voice rougher now. "I'll be in the kitchen." Back in the living room, she drifted past shelves until a frame pinned her in place. A woman laughing. A boy on a red sled. Adrian behind them both, 10 years younger, alive with joy. The breath left her lungs. He came in, the cold still clinging to his skin, and stopped when he saw what she held. His voice was low, roughened by memory. "My wife and my son." Her breath caught. The boy's gap-toothed smile, the woman's easy lean into the man beside her. It all ached with a wholeness she couldn't name. "They're beautiful," she whispered. His gaze slid past her shoulder, fixed on some place the living couldn't see. They were. A plane crash. 5 years ago. Her throat tightened. "I'm sorry," she said, and she meant it. He set the frame back with careful hands, as if it might splinter under anything less. "No one stayed in this house since. I keep it clean because I don't know how not to. I'm not used to guests." Something inside her bent, raw with guilt. The thought pressed near the surface, but she swallowed it back before it could take shape. I don't want to be anything he didn't choose, she taught deep inside. Aloud she said softly, I don't want to be a problem. His eyes caught hers then, steady, unblinking, holding her still. Last night I chose to stop the car. I chose to carry you inside. I'm not walking that back. He hesitated, thumb brushing the edge of the frame, voice lower now, more certain. This morning I said we'd call the shelter tomorrow. But I've decided something. I don't want to take you to a women's shelter. Not yet, you can stay here. If you want to. Silence stretched between them, warm and complicated, the heater clicking on as if to remind the house it wasn't empty anymore. Later, out on the deck, Adrian stacked the last of the wood. Through the window he saw her, small green eyes shadowed, necklace that said Sarah. He'd seen lies before, knew the heat of a con. This didn't look like that, and still, instinct scraped at him. What if she wasn't lost at all? What if she was hiding, and he had just carried danger into his home? He wiped his palms on his shirt, eyes fixed on the tree line. In his chest the suspicion whispered, cruel and quiet. Amnesia, he murmured to himself. Or maybe she is pretending. Morning left a clean edge on the mountains, the kind of light that makes every shadow honest. While Sarah rinsed a mug at the sink, Adrian stood by the window with his phone in his hand and the old discipline back in his spine. He lifted the camera and caught her in profile. Damp gold hair loose down her back, the slim chain at her throat that guarded quiet he couldn't stop reading as brave. He told himself it was for safety. He told himself he'd ask permission later and mean it. In his office, he typed a short message to a number saved as Trudy from Sheriff's Office. Girl, early 20s, concussion, memory loss. Bruises don't look like a car. Any reports since Friday? His thumb hovered over the paperclip. He had framed Sarah's face in the shot, but he couldn't send it. He deleted the photo, the choice clicking shut inside him like a locked door. The reply came a minute later. Nothing this week. No missing girls. You all right, Beckett? He looked back toward the kitchen. Sarah blew on her coffee, flinched at the heat, then laughed softly at herself like someone who didn't yet know if she was allowed joy. I'm fine, he lied, and pocketed the phone. No record. No name. Then who was afraid of home? He found her on the deck with the dog pressed to her knee. Marks leaned his weight into her like a guard who'd already chosen a side. The sight slipped something warm beneath Adrian's ribs. Come with me, he said. Sometimes the ground helps. He grabbed the jeep keys. Minutes later, the black SUV rumbled down the ridge road. Sarah quiet in the passenger seat, Marks leaning against her knee. Adrian pulled over where the service road cut away from the asphalt. He shut off the engine and pointed toward the gravel shoulder. Here? This is where I found you, barefoot, bleeding like you were trying to outrun the night itself. Sarah's hand went to the pendant at her throat. Her lips parted, but no words came. Silence weighed heavier than any answer. They walked on. 10 minutes of pine and cold rock, gravel crunching underfoot. Marks trotting ahead like a scout. Sarah stayed close but quiet, her breath shallow, as if every step pressed against something her body half remembered. Then, through the trees, the shape emerged, first a crooked roofline, then dark boards, and finally the whole of it, hunched in the clearing like it had been waiting. To her cabin. Adrian slowed, eyes flicking to Sarah. Her face had gone pale, lashes low against her cheeks, but she didn't stop moving. I think we should look inside, he said softly, not as a question but as an anchor. Inside the air was colder, silence pressing heavy. Sarah froze on the threshold. A tremor rippled through her body. Then it hit, sharp and broken like glass in her mind. She saw herself on hands and knees, crawling out that same door, hair tangled, ribs screaming, palms scraping raw against the floorboards as she dragged herself into the night. The vision was jagged and gone as fast as it came, but it left her clutching the frame for balance. Adrian stayed back. May I? He asked gently. She nodded once, eyes wet. He placed her hand against his arm, letting her feel the steadiness there until her shoulders eased. Her gaze landed on the cot. Something happened here, she whispered. I don't remember it, but I feel it. Then we leave when you say, he answered. Give me a minute, she breathed. He gave her 2, then checked the corners. Near the cot, a pair of jeans lay half-kicked under the frame, women's mud-stiff at the cuffs. Against the far wall, a pair of Adidas sat heel to heel, laces muddied, a smear of dirt on the toe like a signature. Yours? He asked, holding them up. Her face pinched. I was running in a t-shirt, she said slowly, voice hollow. Barefoot. On the step, Adrian froze. A smear of dried red stained the wood, small but enough. His jaw clenched before he forced himself upright. Jeans, shoes, blood, but no memory with a name. They walked back in silence, Marks pacing half a step ahead. When Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears, Adrian stopped and pulled her against him. She trembled once, then clung. Don't be afraid, he said, voice low, steady. We'll find out who you are. And whoever did this, I'll make him regret it. She buried her face in his chest, silent, trusting. Adrian looked past her, back at the cabin crouched in the trees. His arms tightened as a darker thought cut through the promise. You're definitely not going to a shelter. Not after this. You stay here if you want, here with me where it's safe. But even as she held on to him, he felt the tension in her shoulders. She was keeping something back, and he knew it. Evening settled quiet and sure. Adrian sat in his office, the monitor glowing pale against the dark. Parcel maps stretched across the screen, ridgelines, service tracks, long fences. 3 estates overlooked the old road, too much wealth and privacy for coincidence. His jaw worked tight as he typed. He dialed the number he trusted when ground shifted. Robbins, a voice answered, steady, sanded by years. I need a quiet sweep, Adrian said. 3 houses near my ridge. Owners, guests, unusual movement in the last week. Keep it quiet. I'll start tonight, Detective Robbins said. You'll hear from me. Adrian ended the call and rang Trudy at the sheriff's office. 3 families up here have the money to make problems disappear. If there's a missing girl behind those gates, I need to know. I subtle. You want careful? Trudy said. You've got careful. Adrian ended the call, the echo of Robin's steady voice still in his ear, Trudy's warning still in his chest. He shut the office door behind him. A scent met him on the stairs. Rosemary, lemon, something warm enough to reach past his ribs. In the kitchen, Sarah stood at the counter, sleeves pushed up, a roasting pan pulled from the oven. Golden chicken, herbs crisping at the edges, steam curling in the light. He stopped in the doorway, surprised. Her mouth curved, faintly self-conscious. Apparently, I know how to cook. For a beat, he just looked at her. The competence in her hands, the way she stood taller with a simple task claimed as her own. Then he stepped in, wordless, and set plates down. They ate shoulder to shoulder, quiet at first, then with a rhythm that felt practiced, easy. When the meal was done, warmth from the oven lingered in the room. Sarah drifted toward the piano, fingertips brushing the keys like a secret half-remembered, one note then another, a progression that steadied into something soft. Her shoulders lowered. Her face eased into something lighter. I think I can do this, she said, a small laugh threading her voice. He leaned in the doorway, arms folded. Music had been gone from this house 5 years. Now it breathed again. Something inside him unlatched. Music helps, he said. It does. She looked at him, eyes brighter. You help. The radio hummed low. She crossed the rug barefoot, hair falling in damp waves. Dance with me. I'm out of practice, he said softly with a half-smile that admitted more than it denied. So we go slow. She offered her hand. He took it. Didn't pull her close. Let her decide the distance. Heat gathered anyway. She turned under his arm, laughing too quick, and the motion snagged something inside her, too near a wall, too hot, a hand where it shouldn't have been. Her knee faltered. He caught her at the waist, steady. She pressed her palms to his chest, feeling the sure rise and fall of his breath. Are you all right? He asked. Yes, she said, then truer. With you. She rose on her toes and kissed him, soft first, then certain. He answered before reason caught him, heat flashing sharp and real. He slowed it with his hands, cupping her jaw, drawing back just enough. Sarah. So wait, he murmured. His voice was low, careful. Not like this. Her eyes stayed bright, hopeful. You don't even know who you are yet, he said gently. And from here you look so young. Maybe it feels like wanting, but maybe it's just shock or gratitude. I won't let that be our story. Color drained from her cheeks. Disappointment hit him like a blade. He brushed her hair back, thumb soft against her temple. You're beautiful. Any man would lose his balance. But I won't be the one who takes more from you than the night already did. He rested his forehead to hers. Closeness offered as steadiness. "Stay, just breathe. I don't want to hurt you." Her breath trembled, then eased. She nodded, and the yes of that trust settled into him like warmth in a cold room. She climbed the stairs after the dance, cheeks still warm. In her room she curled beneath the quilt, lashes heavy, shoulders finally eased by the strange comfort of music, and a man who hadn't asked too much. Adrian lingered outside her door. Marx had stationed himself at the threshold, nose to the jamb like a sentinel. Through the narrow crack, Adrian saw her hand fallen open on the sheet, the silver bar of the necklace glinting faintly against her collarbone. She looked smaller there, softer, almost breakable. Desire struck quick and unwelcome, like fire in a room he'd locked years ago. He forced himself still, jaw tight, reminding himself what lines meant. She was young, she was lost, she was afraid. And God help him, she was beautiful. He shut the door halfway, turned into his own room, and lay in the too-orderly dark. Sleep didn't come easy. Restraint never did when his body remembered what his conscience told him to deny. Hours later, the quiet shifted. Bare feet on the floorboards, a faint knock that wasn't really a knock. She stood in his doorway, T-shirt soft against her frame, hair a deeper gold in the dim light. Her voice was barely above a breath. "I can't sleep. Will you hold me?" The word no rose heavy on his tongue, but then she crossed the room, eyes wide with a trust that cut through every rule he'd set. She slid beneath the covers, fit herself along him, and with the first press of her breath against his, all the barriers he'd built gave way. "Adrian," she whispered, tilting up. His answer was instinct, not decision. A kiss that began gentle, learned her second, and deepened with the honesty of a hunger he could no longer pretend wasn't there. She curled a hand at his nape and drew him closer. His palm found her waist and paused long enough to ask without words. "Say it," he murmured against her mouth. "I want you," she breathed. "Now." But still he hesitated. His breath came rougher, his forehead pressing briefly to hers. "Sarah, I'm a man," he said quietly, voice strained. "If we keep going, I'm not sure I can resist. Maybe you should go back to your bed, before this becomes more than either of us can take back." Her eyes shone steady in a way that surprised even herself. She shook her head, whispered fiercely at his ear, "Adrian, I want you to take me. I don't care what I don't remember. All I need now is to feel you." Something inside him cracked at that, equal parts ache and surrender. Every touch asked. Every touch got an answer. At the edge of her shirt he waited. She lifted her arms in one clean motion. His hands learned her by degrees, hip, waist, the quiet place below her ribs where breath gathers when wanting is real. Her fingers tightened in the sheet, then in his shoulders. He knew which meant hold steady and which meant closer, and he did both. "Tell me if anything's wrong," he said softly, checking her eyes. She shook her head. A quick, certain no. She whispered to his ear, "Keep going." When they crossed that last small distance, a flicker of ache moved through her, new, sharp, more surprise than fear. A soft gasp broke from her throat, turning almost instantly into a low moan, the sound raw with both shock and want. She sucked in a breath, nails catching at his back. He stilled, kissed her lips, and waited out the tightness with her, steady as stone but tender in the way he held the moment. "Look at me," he said, quiet as a secret. She found his eyes, let a beat pass, and the strain eased to warmth. She exhaled, a small smile breaking through, and breathed to his lips, "Don't slow down." They found a rhythm that belonged only to them, measured at first, then sure, then a little reckless, in the way two careful people are allowed to be when they feel safe together. She learned the tilt that drew a low sound out of him. He learned the pace that made her arch and chase it. Consent wasn't a pause, it was the pulse underneath everything. Near the crest he heard his name in her mouth and felt his own answer rise, clean, unstoppable. She followed with a soft, surprised sound against his throat, body tightening sweetly under his hands. For a moment, there was only warmth and the hush that follows being known. He touched his forehead to hers and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Her eyes were bright, a little wet, more happy than she'd planned. Adrian kissed her cheek, then her temple, breath still unsteady. "I could feel it," he whispered. "This was your first, wasn't it?" His hand lingered at her waist, gentling what had already been gentle. She tried to speak, but no sound came, just a small exhale that trembled against his skin. When she finally looked at him, her eyes said everything words couldn't. Sarah's throat moved with a small swallow. "If it was," she managed almost to herself, "oh, then I'm glad it was you." He breathed once, pulled her in, and she let out a shaky laugh that said more than any line could. They drifted toward sleep, light, entangled, content, while the house held the quiet like a secret. And out beyond the glass, under roofs with expensive locks, Robbins was already looking, Trudy was already asking, and somewhere a truth had started to wake. They woke the way people do when the night has changed, something they thought was unchangeable. Her cheek rested on his shoulder, his arm, loose but certain, curved around her waist. Morning painted a pale stripe across the ceiling. For a long time they stayed still, just breathing, just being. Sarah tipped her face up, her voice hushed. "You didn't sleep much." "I slept enough," he said, his thumb tracing slow circles against her hand. Silence stretched easy between them, until she whispered, almost to herself, "I think I remember something." His gaze sharpened, not alarm, just quiet attention. "What is it?" She frowned, searching the space between thoughts. "A campus. Maybe a university. I see grass. I was sitting on it with a laptop, sunlight on my knees. But everything else, faces, buildings, it's blurred, like a dream that won't stay." He studied her, trying not to rush her into clarity. "That's something," he said softly. "That's a start." Her eyes found his again. "So maybe I'm 20-something?" He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "That sounds about right." She caught the look, tilted her head. "You're what, 30-something?" 38 and guilty. "So I'm young enough to make you nervous," she teased, but the edge in her smile was real. He leaned in, brushed a kiss against her temple. "You make me careful," he said. "That's different." For a moment she was quiet, then, "I don't remember who I was before last night, but when I woke up next to you, I didn't feel lost." He exhaled slow. "Then we start from that. No pretending we have answers. Just truth until memory catches up." She nodded, reaching across the table for his hand. "Deal." He squeezed her fingers once. "Deal." They drove down into Vale with the windows cracked, the dog's nose fogging the rear glass. The town wore its crisp, moneyed shine, espresso, boot wax, and mountain air. He walked her through streets he'd never noticed for their gentleness. She tried on jeans that fit like memory, and a sky-colored sweater that made her look like she belonged there. In the grocery, she reached for time without checking the label. "Does any of this make you remember?" he asked. "Not like a movie," she said. "More like, my hands know things before I do." "It's human," he said simply. They ate by a cafe window. He watched how the light softened her face, and how the world seemed to watch back. More than once, a passerby's eyes lingered too long. Adrian felt it before he thought it, changing their path as quietly as breathing. She noticed and didn't ask. He was grateful for that. By mid-afternoon, his phone buzzed. "Robbins," Adrian said, answering as he steered Sarah toward the bookstore. "No young woman registered at any of the Ridge houses," Robbins said. "Staff lists check out. Guest logs too clean. Someone could have come and gone quietly. I'm checking delivery records and private contractors next." "Keep it quiet," Adrian said. "You always want quiet," Robbins replied, dry. "You stirring something up again?" "Feels that way," Adrian said, watching the street. "Then I'll move careful." He ended the call and found Sarah a few steps ahead, standing by a table of paperbacks. She turned one over in her hands, eyes soft. "Find something?" he asked. "I think so," she said, smiling down at the cover. "I like stories with happy endings, even if you have to fight for them," he smiled. "Then that one's yours." And he bought it without looking at the price. They ate early at a place with wood tables and smart lighting. She tried a bite of his and laughed when the bartender asked for her ID, then went pink when she remembered she couldn't offer one. "Mr. Beckett," the barman said as he set down the check. "Didn't expect to see you off the screens." Adrian's smile was polite but distant, taking a break from markets that never sleep. The man nodded with the kind of respect that came with knowing the name. "Crypto, right? You made half the valley rich." "Depends on the week," Adrian said, and the edge in his tone made it clear the subject was closed. Outside, the mountain air bit soft at their cheeks. "So you're not just the guy who makes pancakes and chops wood," she teased. Not usually, he said. Denver's home. This place, he glanced up toward the dark ridge, is where I remember how to breathe. She studied him, eyes curious. You run one of those blockchain empires? Ran, he corrected quietly. My partner handles most of it now. I just watch the numbers and pretend they don't own me. You don't seem like a numbers guy. I used to think money was freedom, he said. Turns out it's just noise in a louder room. She smiled, tugging his beanie over her ears. Then I like this version better, the one who listens instead of trades. He laughed under his breath, the sound low and warm. Careful. You might make me believe I can stay up here forever. The drive home was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums with a heartbeat beneath it. Mark slept in the back, nose twitching at dreams only dogs understand. The road climbed toward the ridge, moonlight washing the pines in silver. Sarah leaned her head against the window, eyes half closed. He looked over, something tightening in his chest that had nothing to do with lust anymore. Something heavier, more dangerous. At the house, gravel cracked under the tires and fell still. He cut the engine but didn't move right away. The silence pressed close, like the night itself was listening. For a second, movement flickered between the trees, too fast to name. His body went rigid, instincts flaring before logic calmed them. Nothing, just shadows. He told himself that. Inside, she slipped off her coat and turned toward him, soft-eyed in the low light. He brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. She leaned into the touch like she'd been waiting all evening. Later, with the lamps out and the world reduced to breath and skin, she curled into him, bare against bare, heartbeat to heartbeat. His arm slid around her waist before he could think better of it. She sighed once, settled and stilled, utterly trusting. Adrian lay awake, staring at the dark ceiling. 5 years of silence. 5 years of keeping everyone far enough away that no one could be lost. And now this girl, this stranger, had undone it all with one look, one night, one impossible trust. He hadn't meant to touch her. He hadn't meant to want this. But with her breath warm against his chest, the truth pressed deeper than guilt. He didn't just want to protect her. He needed to. He kissed her hair, soft enough to be a promise. Not again, he whispered into the dark. I won't lose anyone again. His eyes drifted to the window. Something about the night felt wrong, too still, too aware. The air carried that old electric tension his body never forgot. He listened. No wind, no sound. Just that quiet, watching kind of dark that doesn't blink. Down the slope, a car idled with its lights off. A man sat in the driver's seat, face hidden in shadow, eyes fixed on the upper windows. So, he murmured, voice low, patient, deliberate. There you are. The engine clicked once, soft as a thought, and the night swallowed the sound whole. Morning thinned pale across the ridge. Adrian was already dressed, jacket zipped, keys turning in his hand when he found her at the counter. Her hair was loose, cheeks still flushed from sleep. A hand braced on the counter like her body hadn't fully decided to trust the morning yet. Come with me, he said. Denver run. I'll be back by evening. She smiled faintly, tugging at her sleeve. I wish I could. But I feel off. Probably just a cold coming on. You sure? His brow tightened. The concern in his voice was the kind that had nothing to prove. I'll rest, promise. He hesitated, the kind of pause that means don't make me leave you. Lock the doors. Don't open for anyone, except Trudy. She's with the sheriff's office. Dark SUV, badge on her vest. You'll know her, she'll stop by and check in. Okay, she said, voice small but steady. He brushed a thumb over her wrist. Text me if anything feels wrong, anything. She kissed him softly on his chest. I will. He leaned in, kissed her forehead, then her mouth, and quick, grounding, the kind that leaves warmth behind. I'll be back before dark. Drive safe, she whispered. He left with that sound still in his chest, the one that makes you want to turn the car around before you've hit the end of the drive. The house learned her again. She made tea, took 2 bites of toast, and abandoned the rest. Her body felt heavy, like the air itself was thicker. She wandered through the rooms the way people trace the shape of something they're trying to remember. In his study, she stopped at the desk. A book open, pen laid neatly across the page, his order in everything. On the dresser, a small bottle. She lifted it, thumb brushing the glass. One breath. Cedar, spice, that clean note she already knew meant him. Something fluttered under her ribs, half thrill, half ache. She pressed the bottle to her chest for a moment, before setting it back exactly where it had been. She caught her reflection in the window, hair a little wild, eyes wide and uncertain, like a girl standing in a life she hadn't meant to enter. And still, her mouth curved. "God," she murmured to herself, "what are you doing?" The only answer was the house settling, the quiet hum of something alive and waiting. An hour later there was a knock at the door, soft but certain, the kind that asked to be trusted. When she opened it, a woman stood on the porch, dark hair, duty in the set of her shoulders, eyes that had seen worse and handled it. "Hi," she said with a small open hand. "I'm Deputy Trudy Bolton with the Sheriff's Office. Adrian asked me to check in on you." Relief unhooked something under Sarah's ribs. "Thank you." Trudy stayed on the mat, not crossing the threshold without being asked. She slid a card across the step. "My cell's on there. If anything feels off, sound, car, a bad feeling, call me. If you hang up, I'm still coming." Sarah nodded, the card warm in her palm. "I appreciate it." They traded a few easy lines. Weather turning, good takeout if she changed her mind about cooking. Then Trudy stepped back, eyes sweeping the ridge by habit. "I'll be nearby," she said, and went down the steps. Sarah closed the door, exhaled, and called Adrian. "Deputy Bolton was here," she said. She left her number. "Good." His voice came through, steady over the hum of the highway. "Promise me you'll go easy, grab a bite, sit in the sun if you can. I'll be back late afternoon." She smiled faintly. "Okay. Send me a picture of Mark so I know he's earning his keep," he added, lighter now. She laughed, snapped a photo of the dog, sprawled like a king on the rug, and texted it while they were still talking. His voice came warm through the line. "You both look too comfortable." She was about to tease him back when another knock came. Quick, certain, right on the heels of the message. "That's probably Trudy again," she said into the phone, already walking toward the foyer. "Who is it?" Adrian asked, voice easy, unaware. She opened the door. A man filled the threshold. Tall, early 30s, handsome in the way that makes people forgive the wrong things. The suit jacket didn't belong to these trees. The smile didn't match the focus in his eyes. "Hello, beautiful," he said with a husky voice like they had an appointment. She froze, breath locked in her chest. "Who is it, Sarah?" Adrian asked again, sharper now, tinny in her ear. She didn't get to answer. The man moved with the calm speed of someone who expects doors to open, one hand pushing the wood, the other closing around her wrist. Not brutal, certain. The hallway snapped smaller. "Hey, stop!" She started, breath catching. His other hand swept the phone from her grip. It skittered over tile. On speaker, Adrian's voice leapt, "Sarah!" And then the man's shoe came down. Plastic cracked. The line went dead. Her scream tore the quiet in two and disappeared into the high ceiling and the listening trees, leaving only the thud of her heart and the cold knowledge that the day had been lying about what it was all along. Adrian was already halfway down the highway when the sound changed. What had been her voice, soft, ordinary, broke into a sharp intake of breath, the scrape of something heavy against tile, and then the kind of silence that isn't empty but full of what's wrong. "Sarah." His voice caught between command and disbelief. He turned the wheel without meaning to, bringing the car hard into the next lane. "Sarah, answer me." Only static breathed back at him. A small crack, a thud, and the line went dead. His jaw locked. The accelerator sank under his foot. Denver blurred behind him in steel and mirror as he pushed toward the mountains. Every mile narrowing to one thought. Get back. He hit the speaker and called Trudy. "She's in danger," he said. His voice low but iron. "Someone's inside the house." "I'm closer than you," she replied. Calm, clipped. "I'm already rolling toward the ridge in 10 minutes. Stay connected if you can. I'll be there in under an hour." He didn't add if I have to break every law to do it. The engine climbed, wind pressing hard against the glass. The phone flashed. "Detective Robbins, Robbins," Adrian barked, not slowing. "Quick one," the detective said. Patrick Halloway, the owner of one of the 3 estates, filed a missing person report in New York this morning. His daughter Aurora, 20, disappeared 5 days ago. I'll get a photo to match the one you sent me. Adrian's grip tightened until his knuckles blanched. "Call me the second it hits your inbox." "I will." He killed the call, eyes locked on the dark rise of the ridge ahead. His pulse moved like a clock counting down. For the first time in years, he wasn't running from ghosts. He was chasing one. Inside the ridge house, The air had gone thin and strange. The man moved with the unhurried certainty of someone who'd practiced possession. His hand closed on her wrist, firm, not yet brutal, and turned her a fraction, pressure landing exactly where older bruises lived. "So," he said, like they'd set a time. "There you are. I've been looking for you for days." "Let me go," she snapped, breath tumbling. "I don't know you. Who are you?" He tilted his head, amused by the panic he'd made. Up close, he was handsome in the way that makes people forgive the wrong things. Dark hair, clean jaw, city cologne that didn't belong to these trees. Only his eyes were honest, focused, certain. "You really don't remember," he decided after a beat, something colder settling in his mouth. "That's almost better." Blurred images jolted loose. Rough wood, a low cot. Weight where there shouldn't be weight, the drag of fabric, fingers biting down on her shoulders. The present wavered. She blinked hard and pinned it to his face. "What do you want from me?" She forced out. "Not from you." "With you." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "You're coming with me. We finish what we started." She wrenched free for a heartbeat, grabbed a heavy mug from the counter and threw. As ceramic burst against the frame. He flinched, small, real, then caught her again in the hall, patience gone from his grip. "Don't make this harder," he said, turning her one step, then another. "We leave now." "My answer is no." Her voice shook but didn't break. He leaned in, the softness in his tone worse than threat. "We'll make it official." Her mouth went dry. "Official how?" "Marriage. You'll be with me." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "And when it's done, your father will do the practical thing." "My father?" The word felt foreign. "He'll bless it when he understands the situation." His gaze sharpened. "And once we're bound, I'll have a say in what's his and what's yours." She braced a palm to the wall, dragging a breath that tasted like pine and fear. Another flash, the cabin, the cot. Her own voice saying no into a room with not enough air. "I'm not going anywhere with you," she said. "You always try that line." His fingers tightened, just enough to send pain up her arm. She refused to give him a sound. He glanced toward the back door, calculating distance and time, and when his eyes came back to hers, she knew what was coming. The front door stood a handspan ajar. A scatter of white ceramic glittered on the hardwood like ice. Trudy eased sideways through the gap, palm high on the jamb, weapon drawn. The house was too still, like it had just finished holding its breath. "Sheriff's office," she called, low and steady. "If someone's here, make yourself known." Only silence answered. She advanced room by room, her boots whispering on the floor until she saw it. The basement door left open by a hand that hadn't meant to come back. Cold air drifted upward, carrying something she didn't like. The faint sound of movement. Breath struggle. Below, in the half-dark, Sarah's shoulder scraped against concrete as he pushed her down the narrow stairs. The air changed with every step, warmer at first, then sharp and damp the way old earth smells when it's been waiting. "Keep walking," he said softly, hand firm at her spine. "You know this place. Don't pretend you don't." "If you won't come with me," he said, almost conversational, "we do it right here. On the stairs." His hand snapped to the back of her neck, and he drove her against the wall, the impact knocking air from her chest. The concrete was cold through her shirt, rough enough to scrape skin. He leaned in until his mouth hovered a breath from hers, the scent of him, city cologne and something metallic, filling her throat. His breath touched the side of her face, wrong and intimate. "I've waited years for this, Aurora," he murmured, voice steady as a ritual. The little girl finally grew up. "Your first time will be with me." He smiled then, slow, certain, inches from her lips. "I'll put a child in you, and your father will see how big our love is." She twisted hard, yanking against his grip, heels skidding on the step. "I don't remember you," she threw back, voice shaking. "But you're too late. I've already been with Adrian." He stopped short, surprise striking his face, then heat, then a cold, sharpened anger. "Gone 4 days and you gave yourself to a man you didn't even know?" His jaw flexed. He shoved her the last step, and she stumbled to the concrete. He came over her, crowding her space, trying to pin her with his weight. "Get off me," she said, palms braced, pushing, every muscle burning. "You'll carry my child," he hissed. Not his. A foot creaked on the top stair. "Leave the girl." Trudy's voice cut through the space like light. She was 10 steps up, stance clean, arms locked, barrel fixed on the man's center mass. "Hands!" where I can see them." He didn't freeze, he shifted fast and close quarters. One shoulder slammed into Trudy as he lunged up, knocking her hard into the rail. She held her footing, weapon tracked, but he was already twisting past, a blur at the edge of reach. He took the steps 2 at a time and hit the hall running. Trudy sprang after him, catching a full look at his face as he cut past the landing light. The clean jaw, the expensive impatience, the eyes that didn't blink when they should have. Recognition detonated. "Oh, hell," she breathed, never lowering the gun. "He is Callum Dale." By the time she reached the front room, the service door banged, the yard took him, and the woods swallowed the rest. She holstered with a sharp breath and turned back down the stairs. Sarah sat where she'd fallen, shaking, the concrete cold through the thin of her leggings. Her eyes were wide in the low light, tears not quite going over. "I think I know that face," she whispered, as if the dark could hear her. "The cabin. He was over me. He's the one who—" She swallowed hard and covered her mouth with the back of her hand. "Who is Callum Dale?" Trudy crouched, voice steady even as the name kept ringing in her own head. "Patrick Halloway's stepson," she said. "Which leaves one question, honey." She searched Sarah's green eyes, softening without losing the steel. "If he's Callum Dale, then who are you?" The highway climbed back toward the mountains, noonlight flickering off the guardrails. Heat shimmered over the asphalt, the ridgeline sharp against a washed blue sky. Adrian's phone lit with Robin's, and without taking his eyes off the road, he tapped speaker. "Hand steady on the wheel. Confirmation," Robin said. Voice even, the consonants ground down by long years of necessary news. "NYPD's image matches what you sent. Your girl is Aurora Halloway. I'm forwarding the packet and the campus photo now, and I'll keep digging. Quietly." "Understood," Adrian said. A moment later his console buzzed. The file had arrived. On the screen a photo unfolded. A young woman on a campus lawn, NYU printed in purple across her sweatshirt, sunlight in her hair, green eyes bright and alive. Beneath it the line was stark and cold. Aurora Halloway, missing, age 20. Adrian stared at the image, his grip tightening on the wheel. He said her name once, quietly, as if speaking it might bring her back. Aurora. The porch light burned like a small lighthouse when he turned up the drive. Trudy's SUV sat nose out on the gravel, ready to leave fast if she had to. Inside, the air still held the sting of broken ceramic and the thready pulse of adrenaline, as if the house itself hadn't caught its breath. "Perimeter's clear," she said. "He's gone. She's downstairs, shaken, not broken." He took the steps 2 at a time and found her on the lower landing, back to the cool wall, both hands around a glass of water she didn't taste. When she saw him, something inside her gave way, a knot finally loosening. He crossed the last treads and pulled her in, his chin in her hair, apology written in the silence between them. "I shouldn't have left. I should have been here." "You came back," she said, voice small but steady against his shirt. "You're here now." He held her long enough for the room to remember its shape, then guided her upstairs, the dog trotting ahead and circling back as if to count them. At the kitchen table, the dog settled with his chin on her foot, an old geometry of comfort, learned in a new life. Trudy stayed in the doorway, present but giving space, the kind of witness that steadies more than it intrudes. Adrian set the phone on the table and turned it so the screen faced her, moving with the care of a man who knows that a truth is a fragile thing if you drop it in the wrong place. "I know who you are," he said, choosing cadence over speed. "Tell me when you're ready to hear it." She drew a careful breath and nodded. He slid the phone across the table. The screen lit her face. Aurora Halloway smiling under spring sunlight in an NYU sweatshirt. A girl who hadn't yet met the night that waited in the mountains. "You're Aurora Halloway," he said, voice gentle without thinning. "Your father is Patrick Halloway. You're 20. You are reported missing at New York this morning." She looked at the screen as if the image might change, might show her a door she remembered walking through. Something flickered behind her eyes. Not a memory yet, just the pull before a wave breaks. Her fingers hovered over the glass, then fell away, afraid of what touch might unlock. "Does any of it come back?" he asked, keeping his voice level, careful not to crowd her. Her gaze drifted past him to the dark line of the ridge outside. "No," she said quietly. "I still don't remember. I want to, but I don't." He covered her hand, steady and warm. "Then we work with what we have," he said. "We keep you safe. The rest will come when it's ready. She hesitated, eyes wet but focused. That man, Callum Dale. He's my stepbrother? Yes, Adrian said. Patrick Halloway's stepson. Her breath hitched. Then why would he do this to me? Adrian's jaw tightened. That's what we'll find out. What we do know is this. Your father filed the missing person report in New York. He doesn't know you're here yet. The police have contacted him. He's already on a flight. When he lands, we'll go to the station. And when we do, everything will come to light. From the doorway, Trudy watched the girl's face. Something bright flickered in her eyes. Not fear, not confusion. Recognition. It vanished in a breath, but the knowing it left behind stayed. Trudy couldn't write it down, couldn't prove it. But she could feel it. Whatever Aurora remembered, she wasn't saying. Not yet. The fluorescent hum made the small station feel colder than the air outside. Aurora sat beside Adrian, fingers laced with his, the warmth of his hand steadying the tremor that kept trying to rise. The door opened on a gust of mountain air, and a life with money behind it. Patrick Halloway came in fast, tall, silver at the temples, eyes searching before the rest of him caught up. He crushed her into his chest, relief breaking through years of discipline, the kind that only fathers of lost daughters know. He pulled her close. Aurora, my girl, he said into her hair. 5 days. I flew in from New York the minute they called. Behind him stood Wilma, winter-white coat, diamonds bright as ice, watching the reunion as if it might crack. Her knuckles whitened around her clutch, the only place her nerves showed. Aurora eased back, palms on her father's wrists. I'm sorry, she said, calm because panic wouldn't help. I don't remember. I know I should. I don't. Patrick steadied himself, then made a promise the way powerful men do, like a plan already in motion. I'll get you the best doctors, he said. Denver tonight, New York tomorrow if we need it. It will come back. We'll find every piece. His focus slid to the bruises at her wrist, the cut at her hairline, and then to the man whose hand she still held. Who did this to you? Where were you? And who is he? Trudy answered before anyone else could. This is Adrian Beckett, owner of Beckett Financial, she said, tone official and even. He found your daughter near Beaver Creek, brought her in, called a doctor and kept her safe. Patrick's grip changed. He offered Adrian a hand. Thank you, he said. Gratitude sat next to assessment. He also noticed the way Aurora didn't let go. Wilma stepped forward, voice smooth. We've been sick with worry, she said to Aurora, smiling like she was careful not to bruise something fragile. Trudy didn't let the moment drift. She faced Wilma. Where is your son Callum? She asked. We're looking for him. I saw his face in Mr. Beckett's house this afternoon. Her tone was quiet, but it cut through the room like a badge. Wilma blinked, then returned a practiced answer. Impossible, she said. Callum has been in New York for 2 weeks. Trudy wrote the denial in her head. Then someone looked exactly like him, she said, not raising her voice. Sir, to Patrick now, we'll need your help locating him. Aurora swallowed and kept her voice level. I saw him, she said. I can't explain everything yet, but I know that face. He said he'd been looking for me. Patrick's jaw tightened, the first sign of anger under control. We'll handle it, he said. Lawyers, security, whatever it takes. Then he turned back to his daughter, as if the rest could wait. You're coming home. The words landed like a verdict. Adrian didn't move, but something in his chest shifted, the kind of unease that knows the story isn't done. The word landed in the small room and didn't quite fit. Adrian felt it too. He glanced at Trudy, then spoke carefully to a father who wasn't used to being told no. Mr. Halloway, you have resources I don't, he said. But whoever came into my house won't stop because your gates are high. She may be safer with me for a night or two, until we understand the threat. Wilma's look sharpened. With you, she repeated, like a test she didn't plan to pass. Patrick weighed the man across from him, then returned to his daughter. Your place is with your family, he said. We'll keep you safe. Aurora's fingers tightened on Adrian's hand. I have to go, she told him, gentler than the decision felt. If anything comes back, it will start there. Trudy stepped in as the clerk brought over forms. We'll post a unit by your gate, she said to Patrick. And, sir, don't ignore what she told us. If Callum is in Colorado, he thinks he's untouchable. Don't let him be. Signatures went where procedure asked. Numbers were exchanged. The station cooled as urgency gave way to paperwork, which always makes danger feel farther than it is. Patrick closed the pen and offered his hand. "Let's go, sweetheart," he said. "We'll fix this." Aurora rose. The chain at her throat slipped against her skin. She let her father take one hand, and with the other she squeezed Adrian's once, as if passing something wordless across that small bridge. They reached the door. Night pressed against the glass. Patrol lights drifted by like slow stars. She looked back. The sweater they'd bought in town soft at her waist, and found him where she knew he'd be. "I'll come back," she said, voice not loud but sure. Adrian held her eyes. "I won't let you go, Aurora," he said. No threat, no plea, only a promise that understood what it would cost. Patrick drew his daughter through the doorway. The hinge sighed. The hum returned. Trudy watched the glass settle and felt the clean edge of a truth she couldn't yet write down. Whatever was waiting at the Halloway estate, it wasn't finished with any of them. The Halloway mansion sat in its own weather, glass, stone, and the kind of old money that makes silence sound expensive. In the main salon, firelight licked at marble while 4 people tried to decide what the truth would cost. Patrick stood rigid by the sofa. Callum lingered a few paces off, hands in his pockets like they'd never done harm. Wilma hovered near the chair arm, winter white and watchful, and Aurora, barefoot in the doorway, chandelier light turning her hair the color of late wheat, looked like someone waking inside a story she didn't remember writing. Patrick moved first, shadow cutting across his stepson. "What did you do to my daughter?" he asked, not shouting, just steady, which was worse. "You were supposed to be in New York." Callum didn't answer him. His eyes found Aurora's, the smile cold behind it. "Still playing the amnesia card?" he said, voice soft and sharpened. "Tell him, Aurora. Tell your father how in love you were, how we planned to run away, how you brought me to that cabin because you couldn't stand this house another minute." He took one step closer, voice low enough to hurt, "and how you hit me and ran when you changed your mind." Aurora's breath stuttered, her body remembering panic before her mind could. "I don't remember," she said, the words trembling as tears rose. "I wouldn't have done that. I couldn't have." Patrick's hand twitched, instinct protection, but Wilma's touch landed on his sleeve like a warning bell. "Don't, darling, please," she murmured, voice smooth as cream. "He's your son too in every way that matters." She turned toward Aurora, pearls catching the firelight. "And you know your daughter, Patrick. Clever since she was little, always moving pieces, always making people dance. Are you sure she couldn't make a plan like this and cry when it turned on her?" Patrick's jaw worked once, muscle flickering, but he didn't look at Wilma. "If he laid a hand on her—" Wilma cut in, tone still velvet but sharp at the edges. "Then we handle it as a family. We don't drag our name through police reports and headlines. You know how quickly the press would tear into a story like this. Your daughter, your stepson." She paused, letting the shame do its work. "Callum will stay in the East Wing until we sort this quietly. We'll manage it our way." The fire cracked. The room held its breath. Aurora lifted a hand to her pendant and pressed it flat against her chest, as if it could steady her ribs. "Everything here feels wrong," she whispered. "These walls, these faces. It's like my body remembers what my mind can't." Her eyes lifted, clear now. "I want to leave. I want to go to Adrian." The name landed like a stone in still water. Patrick turned, face hardening. He moved faster than a man his age should. Palm up, not rough, but final. "No." His voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. "This is your home. You're not running off to that man again. You're staying here until I say otherwise." Aurora froze. Patrick's tone left no air around it. "We're freezing your semester at NYU. You'll remain under this roof until your memory returns, and we understand what really happened. That's the only sensible path." Then softer, only by degree, "Go upstairs now and don't come out until I come to you myself." Wilma inclined her head in silent approval. "It's for the best," she murmured. Aurora stood there for a heartbeat, measuring the man who had carried her name through a police station like a prayer, and the man who had just barred her exit because he believed it would save her. The latter one, because fathers tend to, and because some part of her wanted answers more than she wanted a different roof. "Fine," she said, though nothing about the word felt fine. "But I didn't do what he's saying." Her father's jaw tightened. "We'll find out what you did and what you didn't," he said. And the sentence tried to be comfort and control at once. Wilma's eyes followed her up the stairs, calm, unblinking, faintly satisfied, while the firelight painted their faces in the kind of gold that makes monsters look like saints. She took the stairs with one hand on the rail, moving slowly as if each step might wake something she wasn't ready to face. The hallway smelled of lemon oil and old paper, familiar in a way that made her chest ache. In her room everything waited exactly as she'd left it. White walls, soft pink throws, a vanity lined with bottles that used to belong to a different version of her. Aurora sat on the edge of the bed, palms flat against the quilt, and let her eyes travel the room like a map she'd once memorized. Tiny details pulled at her, an old perfume bottle, a corner of a poster half hidden under the frame, the drawer she always meant to lock and never did. Each one brought a flicker, Callum's voice, her mother's face, the sound of glass breaking. Not a full memory, but enough to make her stomach tighten. Her fingers lifted to the pendant at her neck, tracing the engraved letters. "Mom," she whispered, the word catching somewhere between ache and memory. She reached for the nightstand. Her hand didn't search. It went straight to the place it already knew. The base gave with a soft click. A hidden panel lifted. Inside, a leather-bound notebook waited, edges worn from use. She stared at it for a long moment, the way you look at something you've already touched in another lifetime. Her throat went dry. She remembered the feel of the cover, the smell of the ink, the reason she'd hidden it in the first place. She opened it to the last page. The words were hers, angry, sharp, written like a secret too dangerous to speak aloud. "After everything they've done to my mother and to me, I have a very good plan to be rid of them. When I'm finished, they won't set foot in this house again." Aurora's breath trembled, but her eyes stayed dry. Slowly, she closed the notebook, slipped it back into the hidden space, and pressed the panel shut. When she looked up, her reflection in the vanity met her gaze. There was something new in it, something she didn't want anyone else to see. "I remember more than they think," she whispered, and the corner of her mouth curved, not in peace, but in warning. Morning crept over the estate in a hush that made every sound feel like a secret. In her room, Aurora sat on the edge of the bed with the diary closed beneath her palm, the weight of a decision steadying her nerves. She unlocked her phone, typed, erased, then typed again, each word a step onto thinner ice. She finally sent Adrian a short, steady message. "I need your help. I remember now, but you have to trust me and do exactly what I say." Her thumb hovered over the screen, heartbeat quick and visible at her throat. The typing dots appeared, 3 pale pulses like a held breath. She stared at the light bleeding through the curtains, the muted stir of the house waking, footsteps in the corridor, clinking china from the kitchen, the soft sigh of heat through the vents. The morning light spilled over Denver's glass towers as Adrian stepped out of the conference building. His tie loosened, the air thick with the noise of traffic and the smell of roasted coffee. A blonde woman passed in front of him, and for half a second he saw Aurora in her, the tilt of her head, the pale hair catching the light just right. The image stayed longer than it should have. His phone buzzed in his hand, Robin's name filling the screen. Adrian answered without breaking stride. "Talk to me." "Nothing new yet," Robin said. "But if you want me to keep digging into the Halloways—" "I do," Adrian cut in. "Look deeper. Family history, old money, anything that explains the rot. That girl isn't safe in that house, and I can't get close enough to prove it." He stopped at the crosswalk, watching the city's reflection stretch across the mirrored glass. "Whatever's happening up there started years ago. I want to know when." He ended the call and stood for a moment, letting the noise of the street fold around him. The thought of her, lost, surrounded by people who might call it family, settled like a weight on his chest. Then his phone lit again, an unknown number. The message opened before he even realized he'd touched the screen. "I need your help. I remember now, but you have to trust me and do exactly what I say." He read it twice, once for the words and once for the voice beneath them. Then his fingers moved, deliberate and sure. "I'll help you. Tell me the plan." He watched the message send, then slipped the phone into his jacket and started toward the parking garage. The city felt too far from the mountains, and for the first time in days, the distance between them felt dangerous. Aurora's phone vibrated once. A tremor passed through her. Relief, fear, both at once. She pressed the phone to her chest for a second, eyes closing, before turning it face down on the quilt. Her reflection caught in the vanity mirror, pale skin, wild hair, and the faintest tremor at the corner of her mouth. She wasn't the same girl who'd woken up lost in Adrian's home. She inhaled long and steady, and whispered to her own reflection, "Then, we start today." Downstairs, the morning was dressed in civility and cold. Silver clinked against porcelain. Sunlight fractured across the crystal. Patrick read messages from New York. Wilma stirred her coffee with distant grace. Across from Aurora, Callum leaned back, lazy confidence in every inch of him. "Eat something," Patrick said without looking up. "You'll need your strength. Tomorrow 2 doctors from Denver will examine you. Until then, you're not leaving the house." Aurora's voice stayed calm, but the edge was there. "I'm not a patient. You're my daughter," he replied, tone cutting through the air like frost. "And you'll stay put." Callum's lips curved in a knowing smirk. "Still under supervision, I see," he murmured, voice low. Wilma didn't lift her gaze. Her silence was its own verdict. Aurora's appetite was gone. She pushed her plate away and stood. "I'll be in the garden," she said, though neither of them asked where she was really going. Later, in the long hallway that smelled faintly of varnish and power, she found Callum. He was leaning against the wall, sleeves rolled, phone in hand. "We need to talk," she said. He tilted his head. "Do we?" "Tonight. At the cabin." Her tone didn't invite debate. Suspicion flickered across his face. "Why there?" "You want the truth?" she said. "Then help me remember it." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "Careful, Aurora. You remember what happens when you provoke me?" His hand brushed her hip, possessive, testing. She didn't flinch. "Midnight," she said. "Be there if you're not afraid of what you'll find." He smiled, all arrogance and danger. "Fine, midnight. But if this is a trap—" His gaze dropped, cruelly intimate. "Make sure you're good at running." As she walked away, her pulse thundered in her ears. The daylight looked harmless, but every step she took felt like trespassing on something sharp. By midnight, everything, the lies, the diary, her mother's name, would surface. And when it did, someone in that house wouldn't walk away unscathed. That evening, she excused herself before anyone could put a hand on her sleeve. Upstairs, she changed into quiet clothes, dark sweater, boots that wouldn't argue with gravel, and tucked her phone into her pocket. The clock on the dresser clicked over to 11:57, a small and merciless sound. The house slept in expensive silence. She eased past the gallery of family portraits, past the vase that had never moved in 12 years, past the corner where the security camera blinked its red, unseeing eye. Down the service stairs, through the mudroom, out the side door that always stuck and then gave with a sigh. The night met her with cold and consequence. If the plan held, she would sideline Callum and Wilma and take back what they had tried to make hers. If it broke, she would lose her father, her name and the future tied to both. She pulled the gate quietly behind her and started toward the trees, every step a promise she intended to keep. The little cabin held its breath the way old wood does, resin and dust rising in the cold as Aurora slipped inside and let the door fall to. A single lamp burned on the crate that passed for a table. Callum stood with his back to her, hands in his pockets, head tipped as if he'd been listening to the walls remember. She let the roll land before he turned. "When you came to the house," she said, voice steady, almost curious, "what you said about us, about making me pregnant, what did you mean by that?" He pivoted slowly, a smile easing onto his mouth that never reached his eyes. "Our plan," he said, as if the words were a shared code. "You were in love with me, Aurora. Your father never trusted you, never really would. Together we take the power back. If you get pregnant, he has to bless the marriage. That's how we make our place in this family, how we make it permanent." He closed the distance inch by inch, fingertips lifting to cup her face, his thumb grazing her cheek as if he owned the right. "You were going to be with me for the first time," he murmured, a soft threat masquerading as tenderness. "And then you gave yourself to someone else. But we can finish what we started." She stepped in, not away, and her voice lost any tremor it had left. "You didn't think of any of this, Callum. Wilma did. She pried my parents apart, inch by inch, until there was nothing left to stitch, and while my mother tried to breathe inside the grief Wilma built for her, the crash came. My mother died on a wet stretch of road, and I almost went with her. Aurora's breath came thin, but her words hardened like stone. You think that was an accident? My mother was so broken by what Wilma did to this family that she lived that entire last year inside a fog of pills. The night of the crash, she was still under their weight. She shouldn't have been driving. And that Callum, she jabbed a finger at his chest, voice trembling with memory, was Wilma's doing. Her hand rose to her pendant, thumb brushing the edge as if touching her mother's name that could hold her steady. Wilma walked into our house and took everything that was mine. She took my father, our home, even the air my mother used to fill with her laughter. I was 11 and you were 22, old enough to know exactly what she was doing, old enough to stop it. Her eyes met his, fury and sorrow threaded tight. But you didn't stop it. You joined her. You learned from her. And that plan of yours didn't end with my mother's death, did it? My father's money wasn't enough. His wealth came in properties, in shares, not cash, and your greed needed more. My mother, Sarah Morrissey, was the sole heir to the entire Morrissey estate. When she died, everything passed to me, to be released on my 21st birthday, 4 months and 13 days from now. She took another step closer, the lamplight turning her hair into fire. So you and Wilma plotted again. You'd take me the way she took my father. Control me, silence me, make me yours before that inheritance ever reached my hands. Her voice broke once, only once. Do you really think I forgot? The nights you slipped into my room when the house slept. The way you touched me, said no one would ever believe me that my father loved her too much to listen. Or the pills she planted in my school bag, the ones she told him were mine so he'd see me as broken, reckless, not worth defending. Aurora's hand found the pendant again and pressed it flat, not to hide the name but to steady it. She treated me one way in front of my father and another when doors were closed. Sweetness for show, small cuts for daily use. And you, she held his eyes, you were old enough to see the difference. You are not a victim of her. You are her echo. She took one more step, and the lamp made a sharp coin of light in her eyes. You're parasites, both of you, living off a family that wasn't yours and calling it destiny. You thought if you got me under your thumb, marriage, pregnancy, leverage, my father would sign over what he built. You wanted the money, the name, the power, and you dressed it up as love. There's one heir in this house, and it isn't you, and that's why you needed me under your thumb. A thin smile touched her mouth, humorless. And my father wasn't going to leave either of you a dime, was he? That's the engine under all of this. Her tone dropped, sharp and final. But I remember enough now to finish this, and I've put the truth where you can't talk over it. Callum let out a short laugh and began to clap, slow and mocking. You little actress, he said, eyes glinting. This fire in you, it's turning me on even more. That night here, on that sofa. You were a trembling little girl. What happened in a week to make you this brave? Losing your memory did you some good. Or maybe, he leaned closer, voice dropping to a taunting whisper, you never lost it at all. Callum lunged forward, his hand closing around her throat as he slammed her back against the wall. Aurora's body hit the surface hard, pinned there under the full weight of him, as if he meant to nail her to the plaster itself. Do you know what it's like to live in the same rooms? To hear your name like an afterthought while everyone worships the ghost of Sarah Morrissey? Your mother's face on every wall. Your father's guilt in every meal. And then you, little Aurora? All golden light and easy smiles. Everyone's second chance. I wanted a piece of that light. I wanted to win. What they gave you for free. His voice frayed, the veneer gone. So, yes, I touched what wasn't mine. I lied, and my mother helped me, because I was never going to be the heir, but I could be the reason the heir fell. You were the prize, Aurora, the key to everything that was stolen from me. The laugh that followed was thin and wrong, the sound of someone who'd waited too long to be seen. Golden goose, he said again, the words a mockery now. You were always an asset, Aurora, and I don't share my assets. He snatched at her dress, fabric rasping as stitches gave way. Stop talking, he hissed. Just leave yourself to me. In that instant, the door burst wide like a storm had remembered its way in. Adrian hit the threshold first, crossed the room in 3 strides and drove a punch that snapped Callum sideways and sent him to the floorboards hard enough to rattle the lamp. The room lurched, then righted. Aurora was already moving straight to Adrian's chest, the shock cracking into relief as his arms locked around her shoulders. Boots thundered behind him. Trudy and 2 uniformed deputies, voices sharp and controlled as they fanned and covered. "Hands where we can see them," Trudy said, center mass lined up, stance planted. "Now." Callum tried a smirk and found his mouth too loose for it. "You have nothing," he said, breathless but defiant. "No proof." She planned it all. You walked into her show. Adrian tipped his head toward the ceiling joist, then to the far corner where a knothole looked wrong if you knew what to look for. "We have enough," he said, even and cold. "Top beam, west corner, wide angle. Sidewall audio. You just confessed on 2 cameras, Callum. Every promise, every threat, every word about the baby and the marriage and confession of your plan with your mother." Trudy's eyes flicked to the mounts and back. Satisfaction, a quiet current under her professionalism. "Turn over," she ordered, closing the last step with a deputy on each side. "Hands behind your back." Metal clicked. The sound landed like the truth finally finding a chair. Adrian fisted Callum's collar. "You won't come within a mile of Aurora ever again. You won't get another chance." Callum glared up from the floor, fury and calculation wrestling for space. "You think this sticks?" He spat. "Money moves judges. She wanted this as much as I did." Aurora stepped out of Adrian's hold just enough to be seen, the torn edge of her dress gathered in one hand, her voice level in the way that makes lies sound cheap. "I wanted my life back," she said. "Not you." They hauled Callum to his feet. Trudy read the charges clean and spare. On the threshold she paused, glanced at the joist and gave Adrian a single, small nod that said good work without using the words. Silence refilled the room in their wake, the lamp casting a softer circle now that danger had a set of wrists to hold it. Adrian's hand found Aurora's cheek, not possessive, just present. The other arm wrapped her in and kept her there like the world could try and wouldn't get past him. "Watching from outside," he said, voice roughened by the last 10 minutes, "was the worst part. The second he put a hand on you, He broke off, forehead tipping to hers. "I'm here. You're safe." Hes slid a hand into her hair, kissed her softly and said, "We're going to set everything right, Aurora. I love you and I'm never letting you go." Aurora rose to meet his mouth, the kiss brief and sure, the thank you in it deeper than the word could carry. "I couldn't have proved any of it without you," she said, breath evening. "Wilma and Callum have been working me for years and my father never saw it. But you did. You believed me before I even had the words." Adrian pulled her to his chest, the cabin's thin walls holding a warmth they hadn't earned until now. Somewhere outside, tires ground over gravel, and a car door thudded shut. And for the first time in a very long time, the night felt like it might be on their side. A year reshaped the skyline. Aurora transferred to a Denver campus, where the foothills framed every lecture hall. Between classes, she rode an elevator to her father's company, and learned balance sheets and boardrooms with the same quiet focus she once gave to piano scales. Patrick signed the papers that ended his marriage to Wilma. The house lost some of its sharpness, and Callum learned how long a year can be when it is counted in concrete and steel. Aurora and Adrian lived in a sunlit apartment near Cheeseman Park, his books sharing shelves with her case studies, her sweater on the back of his chair. They wore a ring that felt less like a promise and more like naming something already true. On some weekends they still drove west, letting I-70 open into the high country until Vale rose like a memory they chose to keep. Patrick met them at the lodge with a hug that landed cleaner than it used to. Over dinner he asked the question fathers ask when the ground is steady again. "When is the wedding?" he said, trying not to hurry the answer and failing a little. "When she finishes school," Adrian answered. The way he said it put Aurora's future on the table like a gift he had been saving. Patrick nodded. A man can learn patience at any age, if the right thing is at the end of it. Later, Aurora climbed the old staircase that had carried too many arguments and a few prayers. Her room had new paint and a new bedspread, but the morning light still fell in the same square on the floor. She opened the nightstand, found the diary where she had left it, and sat at the desk. The chain at her throat slid under her fingers. Sarah, her mother's name, lay small and steady against her skin. When the page took the ink, her hand did not tremble.
"Dear Mom, I kept my promise. I proved what Wilma did to your marriage and what she tried to do to me, and I put the truth where Dad couldn't look away. I haven't forgiven him completely. Not yet, but I am trying. I'm letting him know me, and I'm learning who he is when the fog lifts. We're rebuilding, slowly, honestly, because anything worth keeping is built that way. And Mom, in the middle of all of it, I found the love you would have wanted for me. He is solid where the ground breaks. He is kind when the day asks too much. And he never once flinched when I handed him the mess. I think God sent him in the dark so I wouldn't have to walk it alone. There is a good future waiting. School finished, a wedding under clear Colorado sky, work that matters, a family that learned how to tell the truth. I carry your name at my throat and your courage in my chest. I'm going to be okay. More than okay. I love you.
She closed the diary and let her palm rest on the cover, listening to the house breathe as if it had finally remembered how. Downstairs, her father laughed at something Adrian said, and the sound climbed the stairwell like a promise that would hold. She carried the diary back to Denver and set it on the desk by the window. The city laid out like a constellation she finally knew how to read. On the balcony, the night was soft and a little electric. Traffic stitched light through the streets, while the mountains held their dark line at the edge of everything. She stepped into the cool air, fingers finding the Sarah pendant at her throat, and breathed in a future that did not flinch. Adrian came up behind her without announcement, the way people do when they belong. His hand slid into hers, warm and sure, and they stood that way for a long moment. No speeches, no plans. Just the quiet knowledge of work done and the better work ahead. When she turned, he kissed her forehead, then her mouth, and the city seemed to lean closer. "Ready?" he asked. She smiled toward the ridgeline. "Yeah," she said. "Let's go." She laced her fingers with his and paused. He turned to her, and Aurora rose onto her toes and kissed him softly. "I love you, Adrian Beckett," she whispered. "Thanks for staying till the end. Where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to me.